Here are the answers for the problems in 10.1, the first part, I believe. If you want to look at these for a little bit longer, just pause the video and then you can check your work against these answers. Today we're going to finish section 10.1. We'll start with example 4. This is still using the square root property. So same kind of thing that we were doing in the last video. We need to get whatever is squared by itself and then use a square root to solve it. So in this first problem, we would need to subtract 36 on both sides to get x squared equals negative 36. To undo the square, we square root, and don't forget that you need a plus minus in front of that square root. So x equals positive or negative. The square root of negative 36 is the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 36. The square root of negative 1 is I, the square root of 36 is 6. So this is 6i. X equals positive or negative 6i. In example B, the thing that is squared is already by itself, so we need to square root both sides. Don't forget that because we put that square root in, we have to put a plus minus in front of that answer. The square root of negative 49 is the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 49. Square root of 49 is 7, square root of negative 1 is I. So really, you need to remember from our last unit that I wrote the wrong thing. I is the square root of negative 1. You need to make sure you remember that. In this problem, we still have to get x by itself. So our next step would be to add 4 on both sides. And that 4 is going to go in right in front of that plus minus. So we have 4 plus minus 7i. 4 plus or minus 7i. And our last example today is solving an equation of quadratic form. This is basically factoring, but instead of x squared plus something, x plus something, it's x to the 4th. So we are still going to factor this, and we're trying to get it down to 2 sets of parentheses equals 0. If this was x times x would be x squared. We need it to be x to the 4th. So this needs to be x squared times x squared. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th. X squared times a number and a number times x squared, those will combine together to give us this middle number, this negative 13x squared. And then the number times the number will give us our positive 36. So we are looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 36 and add up to negative 13. So they both have to be negative, two negative numbers. And I've said this in my classes over and over. Some people just see this and some people don't. I tend to be the kind of person that doesn't just see it unless I've done that kind of factoring problem a bunch of times. So I'm going to write out ways to get 36. 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, 6 times 6. The 4 and the 9 would give us 13. So it's negative 4 and negative 9. So x squared minus 4, x squared minus 9. There's two ways to finish this problem. Both of these binomials are difference of two squares. So you could factor further using difference of two squares. The other method is take this first one, x squared minus 4, and put it equal to 0 and solve. This other piece is x squared minus 9, put that equal to 0 and solve. So the x squared minus 4, you'd add 4 to both sides to get x squared equals 4. Square root both sides. What do we have to have? A plus minus. Square root of 4 is 2. Add 9 to both sides. Square root. Plus or minus 3. There are 4 solutions to this problem: positive 2, negative 2, positive 3, and negative 3. Typically, I am fine with writing plus minus 2, plus minus 3, but if your teacher wanted you to, you could write out the answers are negative 3, negative 2, positive 2, positive 3. So x equals all of those answers. Okay, let's look at example B. Again, we are going to factor this quadratic form. Because it's x to the 4th, this will be x squared in those first spots of the binomial. We're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give us 10 and add up to negative 7. That would be negative 2 times negative 5. Negative 2 plus negative 5 is negative 7. So this first binomial, x squared minus 2 equals 0. Add 2 to both sides, square root. The square root of 2 is a decimal. That's not a perfect square, so we are just going to leave it as plus or minus the square root of 2. If that happened to be a larger number, like 24 or 30, or not 30, 24 or 32 or something big like that, you could break down that square root to simplify it. But 2 of our answers are positive square root of 2 and negative square root of 2. This other portion, x squared minus 5 equals 0. Add 5 to both sides, square root. X equals positive or negative, not 5, positive or negative square root of 5. There are the 4 solutions. Here's the book assignment for 10.1 day 2. Remember that PDF, you're accessing that PDF, or if you happen to have a textbook at home, you can use your textbook. Starts on page 504. And there will be an EdSite assignment posted tomorrow for you to enter some of your answers.